Around a month ago, I covered the latest Chilla Art game, a game called The Kidnap. And just like that, we now have another one. This is Jisatsu. This game followed a found footage angle and was easily one of the most suspenseful and creepy Chilla Art games I've played in a long while. For a while, Chillas have been focusing on the dark side of humanity. Stalkers, killers, human horror, and the such. But this game went towards the supernatural again, demons and folklore. There weren't many notes or lore documents in this game, so a lot of what I mention in this video will be speculation of what I think this game may be about. Feel free to share your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Now, as this game has literally just dropped, there will be spoilers in this video for Jisatsu, so please bear that in mind before watching on. With all that being said, let's get into it. The game starts out and shows our protagonist working for a film company. His boss wants new ideas and asks the protagonist to come up with something for a new project. Frustrated that the protagonist is just sat there, the boss tells the protagonist that in order to get new ideas, the company need to keep up with what is currently popular and trendy. The boss then says that they've heard a popular trend is to test one's courage by exploring an abandoned house at night. He recommends a specific house in a specific neighborhood, as he's heard it's quite bizarre. Although conveying their concern that they're expected to go there all by themselves, the protagonist is told by his boss to remember to take his camera with him, and only to go back there once he's captured some good footage. So the protagonist leaves, eventually arriving at the house. It's run down and there is trash all over the place. Exploring the house, which is now eroding due to not being cared for, the protagonist sees a woman at the end of the hallway and she walks off. The protagonist finds a tap running in the kitchen and, bizarrely, sees some hair stuck inside an air conditioning unit. In one of the rooms on top of a kotatsu, they find a newspaper article along with the videotape. Placing it into the nearby VHS player, the protagonist watches the tape. The tape is a recording of a young boy, perhaps a teenager, filming a scene in which two people lay dead whilst two more people mourn their deaths. I believe the two people who died are the boy's parents and the two mourning people are his grandparents. The boy gets up and goes to a room, and inside a closet, a dead bird. The closet is also covered in blood and feathers, indicating that this boy is clearly disturbed. He moves outside and begins to bury the bird in the earth. But then the boy hears something. He goes after it and a voice from the outside toilet speaks to him, and it tells him "well done," indicating that this boy has spoken to this voice before. Who or whatever the voice belongs to tells him that it's hungry and to fetch it some food. So the boy grabs the dead bird he wasn't able to finish burying and then throws it down the hole in the ground. The tape ends there and the final image shows another tape lying at the spot where the bird was buried. Going to pick up the tape, the protagonist spots a woman standing. Checking it out, it appears that it was just a hallucination. He also spots a set of eyes watching him from the outhouse, which soon disappear. Going outside and picking the tape up, the protagonist once again places it inside the VHS player. The boy's at the toilet again. This time the demonic voice tells him to bring it the head of the carp. So the boy goes to the pond and catches one of the koi. The voice tells him that he needs to first remove the fish's head, so the boy heads to the kitchen to get a knife. His grandmother seems exasperated with him, and his grandfather tells him to throw the fish away. Their displeasure at the dead fish is likely due to the fact that koi fish are considered and regarded as sacred fish in Japanese culture. The boy goes to a cupboard with a handsaw and cuts the head off of the fish. Exiting the cupboard, many dead koi are revealed. Something seriously messed up is happening here. Feeding the fish head to the entity, the tape once again ends, and another videotape is shown. This time it's on a floor somewhere in the house. The protagonist goes to try and find it. Entering one particular room, the protagonist hears a chomping sound coming from one of the cupboards. Inside, a radio, a bunch of boxes, and behind the boxes, someone is sat in the cupboard, eating something. Nonetheless, the protagonist grabs the tape. The room goes black and a strange chanting can be heard. Whatever or whoever was in the cupboard runs off. Leaving the room with the tape, the mannequins seem to be moving around the house. The protagonist places the tape inside the VHS player. The tape shows that the boy's grandmother has now passed away. A crow pecks away at her face, and she appears to have been watching something on the TV, and it potentially affected her. The grandfather mourns his wife and turns slowly to the boy. The boy goes to the outhouse, and an ornate doll is sat there. The voice says that this effigy possesses. The voice tells the boy to take a lock of his grandmother's hair and place it on the doll. He does this and places the doll into the hole. A doll is shown on the TV. The protagonist notices a doll has now appeared on the kotatsu, but there is hair coming from underneath it. He takes the doll and the hair disappears after the doll's head falls off. 5 more dolls are scattered about the house, and after finding the final one, a key is inside one of them. During this, the protagonist saw a dark figure hiding behind a curtain, which ran off when he got closer to it, with it eventually running out the front door. The key unlocks the door upstairs, and upon entering, the protagonist discovers a room full of dolls. Another tape sits on the side, and picking it up, something comes flying through the door, and a crow makes an appearance. Eventually, the door opens, and the protagonist goes downstairs to play this tape. This tape shows the boy emerging from somewhere under the house. He heads straight to the outhouse. This time, the voice tells him that the boy's grandfather has now died too, that he's in the bath, and that the boy needs to bring the entity the grandfather's fingernails. So, the boy sure enough finds his grandfather deceased and in the bath. He removes his fingernails one by one. What appears to be the ghost of his deceased grandmother appears, but then the boy takes the fingernails and gives them to the entity, ending the tape. The next tape is in the bathroom. He drains the bathtub and grabs the tape. The bathroom door is stuck, almost as if someone is holding it from the other side. The protagonist turns around and sees someone standing behind him in the mirror. Turning around, there's no one there. This time, the VHS player and the TV have been moved. The protagonist then finds a hatch leading underneath the house. Using the ladder, they head down. It's a short and very small underground tunnel, and this is where the hole for the toilet leads to. At the end, the protagonist sees a bunch of crosses, graves, and a large picture of Jesus, and a couple of religious statues relating to Christianity and Catholicism. The VHS player is also there. Playing the tape, the protagonist sees that the boy is down in the underground area, and the voice tells him to invert each cross in the house. In the area with the crosses, there are a couple of coffins or caskets, likely containing the bodies of the boy's grandmother and grandfather. Exiting and heading back into the house, the boy inverts all 7 of the crosses. When he does so, disturbing things are revealed. Statues appear, the dead fish and the birds, creepy possessed dolls that watch the protagonist, bodies on the floor, and loads of hair. With that being the end of the tape, the protagonist goes to head back upstairs and into the house, but finds that the hatch is shut. Seeing a gap underneath the house, the protagonist crawls through, but eventually discovers they are being pursued by someone. They reach the end and run to their car. They drive away from the house very quickly, but have to stop as a fallen down tree is blocking the tunnel. The protagonist gets out of their car to see if they can move it and leaves the camera, still recording, on the dash. As the protagonist disappears into the tunnel, the creepy individual is still following them, and heading into the darkness, a few seconds pass, and the individual emerges, dragging the dead or unconscious protagonist out of the tunnel. They place them in the car and drive back to the house. The individual gets to work in dismembering the protagonist and places their remains inside a trash bag. The whole thing is being filmed, and the individual picks up the camera, walks outside, and disposes of the remains down the hole in the toilet. Post-credits, we see the boss of the film company and a subordinate sat there. They were sent the tapes from the house and had been watching them in the office. They discuss why the protagonist hadn't just brought the tapes into the office, but then they discuss how he hasn't turned up for work since. The subordinate goes to the bathroom and the boss hears a noise. Walking into the next room in the office, the boss sees the subordinate lying on the floor, either dead or unconscious. The boss turns to see the creepy individual in a locker, and the screen fades to black, and the game then ends. Alright, so now we get into what exactly happened and look at what is going on in this house. Now, the individual stalking the protagonist at the end of the game and throughout their time in the house was the young boy, just grown up. Judging from the state of the house in the present day, it's been many years since the original tapes were filmed. As a side note, Jisatsu is Japanese wordplay. It can mean 2 things: taking a picture of yourself, a selfie, filming oneself, and also it means that thing which we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube, self-deletion. Now again, this is just a theory, but from the graves underneath the house, it's possible that someone who lived in this house before the young boy's family was possessed and influenced by this demon, and that person potentially killed their own family too, hence the many graves underneath the house. The demonic influence stayed there when the family was gone, and when the new family moved in, the demonic influence got to work in influencing the most vulnerable, youngest member of the family, the son. When it comes to the religious imagery in the house, it's known that in Japan, Christianity was actually banned for a couple of 100 years, and Japanese Christians would have to hide their chosen religion amongst Shinto and Buddhist symbols and signs. That's probably the reason why there were images of Jesus, along with statues of Mary hidden underneath the house. When it came to the boy's behaviour a bit later in the game, it shows us that he turned the Butsudan shrine to face the wall too. The Butsudan shrine is something that is used to pay respects to Buddha and any deceased family members. There is what appears to be a spirit tablet too, a tablet used in funeral rites, and there is also a kamedana, translated as God shelf, in another room in the house as well. The grandmother and grandfather seem to be praying to the Christian God, as he is holding a cross in his hands. It's not really clear as to what killed the boy's parents, but by this point, he'd been showing signs of being disturbed by something, given him harming animals and potentially torturing them. When the grandmother died, she appeared to have been watching a strange video and just died. When the young boy watched it, even through his camera, the voices from the video got louder in his head. When it came to the boy being instructed to take a lock of the grandmother's hair and to adorn the doll with it, it's likely that the grandmother's soul got transferred into the doll through her hair. This is similar to the tale of the Okiku doll. The Okiku-chan doll is said to contain the spirit of the little girl that owned her. The little girl's parents kept the doll, but after strange things started happening in their home, involving the little girl's spirit, the doll was left with Buddhist monks at a temple. However, the doll apparently started to grow real human hair and teeth, and this ties into the grandfather's nails as well, as hair and nails are said to contain people's souls, and this explains why there was the grandmother's hair all over the house. Now in Japan there's a superstition that it's bad luck to clip fingernails at night, and that it can bring about evil spirits and can even result in death. I'm not sure about the removal of someone else's fingernails though. There's also a superstition that a crow's caw means something bad is going to happen, and there is plenty of that going on in this game. As to why the demonic presence was asking for things to eat, well, the only thing I can think of is that if we are considering the spirit to be a Japanese Buddhist ghost, the demon is likely one of the known hungry ghosts called a jikininki. It's certainly possible that the demonic presence was looking for a body to possess. Inverting the crosses was the final step in allowing the demon to possess the boy, and he's been possessed ever since, killing anyone who sets foot in the house. Then we see the black sensor boxes. The sensor was due to something so incomprehensible being behind it. With the pictures of the deceased people, it was likely just to conceal their identities. In terms of the Christianity stuff, it was likely that the demon-possessed boy was harmed by it and saw it as a threat. Another possibility is that the individual, now that he's gathered all the tapes, edited them to remove any evidence of the supernatural, making it look like a standard horror project, and sent the tapes to the film company. Now, because the boss and the subordinate watched the videos, it's entirely possible that because they watched the part with the strange voice in the TV, they essentially invited the demonic presence in, much like the popular horror movie, The Ring. But again, that's just a theory. And there was just one final thing. There was this newspaper clipping lying on the kotatsu, but with no supporting English text on it, I couldn't make out what it was referring to. I did read somewhere online that it could have been a clipping revealing that the young boy had indeed been a troubled kid and had got into some trouble before, which explains why the article has a censor box over the top of it. If anyone knows what it means, then please share it below. But that's pretty much it. It was a decent horror experience, but one where I feel the story being expanded upon a bit more would have been very beneficial. If you did enjoy this one, then please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And like I said, leave your theories below in the comments. But for now, take care, and I will see you in the next one.